What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. We've got some more veteran receivers to look at here that the Seahawks could sign for cheap to fill in the roster behind a hypothetical Tyler Lockett-less Seahawks roster. That's basically the scenario where I see this playing out. So if it happens, if the Seahawks decide to move off of Lockett via trade or release or whatever, then these are some guys that I think they could bring in just to fill out the roster. So the earlier video this morning went through the first group of guys. We got a second group here that I want to cover. I know this is not exactly the most exciting stuff in the world right now because we just had the Combine wrap up. I was just streaming it. Just had the stream wrap up shortly before this upload. So if you were there, thank you for showing up. Had a lot of fun. And now I need a little bit of time to process what we saw into a coherent narrative. So Combine videos will be coming a little bit later today. I know that's a lot more interesting right now. But before we get there, let's take a look at some of these receivers that you could get for cheap. The first guy, familiar face, Goodwin. You guys might remember this guy because he was here in 2022 and actually played pretty decently for us. It was his best season in some time, actually. It was his best season since 2018 in San Fran. Did pretty good. Nice little player for us. Got good speed. Good on the outside, and that was kind of the problem then, right? He was an outside receiver, but we played him in the slot a lot because we needed a slot receiver. And Goodwin had his best game in the Chargers game that year when he was lined up on the outside because Metcalf got hurt in that game, if you will recall. So you bring back Goodwin now, you could actually ask him to do the things that he's best at, which is playing on the outside and basically just be a depth guy. And he would be very cheap because last year he barely did anything for the Browns. He caught 4 passes, 67 yards, completely anonymous, nothing to say at all. Last time he was here, he did fairly well despite being played out of position. Now, he is going to turn 34 in November, so age is starting to become a problem. But he should be able to adequately fill in as a depth guy for one season. So Goodwin, I think, would be a viable option there. Next guy is a little bit of a second-round bust of the Rams a few years ago, Jefferson. He was on the team that won the Super Bowl, and he has had some notable years. 2021, which was actually the year they did win the Super Bowl, he had over 800 yards, but since then, he's been kind of quiet. He's been slowly slipping away. Was an afterthought in 2022. 2023, they traded him to Atlanta, and he didn't find success there. So at this point, he's probably just kind of peaked. He's peaked as a player. Even though he's about to turn 28, he shouldn't be peaking, but I think he is. So there's not much to say here. PFF is pretty cold on him, and he'll be getting, according to Spotrac, 2.4 million. But hey, it's a one-year deal for a guy with a little bit of upside who has produced pretty well in the not too distant past. So you could do worse. And for $2.4 million, it should be pretty good. Another guy in this realm who you could consider going after would be Nick Westbrook. The issue here is I believe Nick Westbrook is typically a slot guy, and we're a little bit stacked at the slot receiver position with JSN. And by the way, Lockett can do some slot stuff, and Bobo's also kind of a big slot guy. So taking a look at a guy like Nick Westbrook, I don't know how well he would fit in what we might need. We need more depth at the outside. But this guy's been hanging around these last 4 years as a capable, decent, kind of, sort of, semi-starter, semi-bench guy. 500 yards in 2021. And he just hasn't really caught on. It looked like in 2021 he was starting to become something for a really good Titans team. And since then it's just been kind of stagnant. Maybe not even stagnant. He actually has seen less usage with each year that's gone by. So, should be very cheap. PFF is pretty lukewarm on him, but for a guy like this, there's nothing wrong with that. Spotrac says 1 year, 2.5, 2.6 million, viable. Again, a lot of these guys, by the way, the wide receiver market this year is so thick, both with the draft and free agency. Some of these guys might just get vet min because there's no money left. Like, if guys like Mike Evans and Odell Beckham and, who else? Who else are the big guys in this? Michael Pittman and T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley. If those guys sop up all the money, there's not going to be money left for these guys, and they're just going to be like, I'll take anything to stay in the league for another year. But, you know, even 2.5 million for Nick Westbrook would be okay. Okay. Next guy, I've talked about this guy before. I remember him. Olamide Zaccheaus. Olamude Zaccheaus. Been in the NFL for a handful of years here, mostly with the Falcons. Had some okay years with the Falcons. 2022, he had 40 catches, and then he went to Philly last year and was just a backup, caught 10 passes. Not a lot to say about him at this point, but he should be very cheap. He was cheap last year for the Eagles. Should be even cheaper now because he didn't do much last year. Not much to say about what PFF thinks. They think he's okay. They think he's decent. Spotrac has a value page 1.6, 1.7-ish. I think it would be less, honestly, because the market is so big and because he didn't do anything last year. Like, what is this guy going to lean on? I caught 10 passes last year. You catch 10 passes in a year, you should probably be getting the vet min, and you're going to be pretty happy about that. So that would be another guy I think you could pull in to just fill in the roster for a year as a reserve. Couple more guys, and then we will go ahead and wrap it up and move towards the combine conversation. We got Brandon Powell, former Super Bowl champion, actually. Won a Super Bowl with the Rams. Didn't play at all that year, but he did play a decent amount last year for the Vikings. Had an okay year as a reserve. Started 2 games. Played in every game, though. Caught about 2 passes a game. Not too bad. Seems like he's developing a little bit of something here, but we are talking about a guy who's already in his physical prime in terms of years. So this is probably all he's ever going to be. He's certainly undersized, but again, you're not looking for anything to stand out here with this crop. You're just looking for guys who can sit on the bench and come into a game occasionally and be okay. And Brandon Powell would probably be okay. Spotrac says 1 year 1.7, 1.6. So again, relatively reasonably priced, pretty cheap here. So you want to go this route, I think it would be all right. And final guy that I want to take a peek at here would be Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's been a presence on the Browns and the Lions in his career. He's only 25, by the way, still very young, which is kind of weird because it feels like he's been in the league a long time. He's had good years. 2022, had over 800 yards, 60 catches. Looked like he was breaking out. But then Cleveland decided to go in another direction, sent him to Detroit. And 2023, he basically did nothing. So now he's just trying to rebuild his rep. Going to try to find success somewhere else. I do think that this is a guy who might fetch a little bit more money because he has had notable seasons recently. But Spotrac says 1 year 2.7, 2.8. Not much. So you could get Donovan Peoples-Jones for that kind of cost. You're probably going to get your money's worth. You're going to get a guy with upside. You're going to get a guy who might actually be coming off just kind of a fluky bad year. So, let me know what you guys think about this crop of receivers. Those are the guys who stood out to me as guys who would make sense to bring in for depth if we need depth. So let me know down below. I will see you guys later. Go Hawks. And that's my look at the low-level wide receivers in free agency this year.